Hello and welcome to Threefold Herbal Healing. I'm herbalist Leo Sade. I help people who are sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, or people that have chronic disease, grow their health from the roots up. I'm going to dedicate the next 4 videos to ADHD. They're going to be long videos, relatively long to what I did so far, because there is so much good information that I want to share. So if you or your child are struggling with ADHD and you're looking for information, I'm here for you. So let's just dive right in. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder. So lately, there are people that are resisting this classification of ADHD as a disorder and prefer labeling it as a condition or as neurodivergent condition that is not necessarily a problem, but rather brain differences affecting how the brain works that include maybe areas of strengths and areas of weaknesses that are maybe different from other people. So some people rather call ADHD neurodivergent brain. Now, really, ADHD is not one disorder. The different manifestation of ADHD equals to the number of people who exhibit ADHD. Some people struggle with staying attentive to a task. Some people have a problem inhibiting actions. Some people have problem initiating behaviors, and some people struggle to control their emotions. ADHD is very individual condition and it manifests somewhat differently in different people, which kind of raised the question, what is the underlying mechanism in the ADHD brain that can manifest in so many different ways? So what really are we talking when we talk about ADHD? In the past, people talked about ADHD as minimal brain damage, or as problem focusing, or as executive functioning problem. But now we know that ADHD is a manifestation of problem of self-regulating. And self-regulation is the capacity to optimize your behavior, your thinking, your attention, your emotional experience, and your emotional expression. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have a problem inhibiting behaviors. In some cases, it means that you actually have a problem promoting or initiating behaviors. But it almost always means that you have problem with fine-tuning the response to the situation. People with ADHD struggle to fine-tune their responses. They are either responding too fast or too slow. They either respond too weakly or much more strongly than what the circumstances require. Now, since self-regulation involves multiple parts of the brain, multiple brain processes, when something is wrong with even one of those processes, it might look like ADHD. So what are we talking when we talk about a problem with self-regulation? There are self-regulation problems that are related to cognition or to thought processes. That means that the person with ADHD has a hard time controlling which thought they focus on, making them very easily distracted. People with ADHD have a low capacity of attention and low impulse control. They are easily distracted, but at the same time, they can be hyper-focused when engaging in activities that they find interesting, or exciting. People with ADHD are chronically late to meetings and often procrastinate when given an assignment. They underestimate the time that they will need to complete tasks. However, they can plan and complete tasks in time when giving a deadline and if the consequences of not completing the tasks are severe enough. Another aspect of completing an assignment that people with ADHD might struggle with is taking a big assignment and cutting it into small steps and following those small steps. So planning small step toward one goal is hard for people with ADHD. Some people with ADHD have problem with orienting themselves in space. That means they have challenges organizing their belonging, and then they might have difficulty finding stuff that they need to complete tasks or to function in their everyday life. So spatial perception and using it in everyday life. People with ADHD often have excellent memory for past or upcoming event, but the working memory is disrupted. You want to think about working memory like a temporary sticky note in your brain. It can hold really limited amount of new information, but it allows you to manipulate that information and work with it, connect it with other information. And for people with ADHD, what they can actually store on that working memory, on that sticky note, is very limited. The self-regulation problem extends beyond cognition into behavior and action, where it means that they have inability to optimize the level of reaction to a condition that they are involved in. The reaction might be too strong, too fast, or too slow and too weak and sluggish. People with ADHD are described as impulsive. It means that they are reacting to immediate triggers without taking the time to reflect or to consider the consequences of their behavior for the long term, if they want to achieve long-term goal. Some people with ADHD might tend to blurt out things that they shouldn't even say or act in a very impulsive way. But they also have a hard time initiating or maintaining effort over time. So in some way, it's overreaction. In other people, it's an underreaction. Impulsive behavior puts people with ADHD in risky situation because they jump and react from thought to action without pushing the brakes and evaluating the implication of their behavior. Cravings and addiction are especially common among people with ADHD because they attempt to curb down the impulsivity and the overwhelming their brain by using coffee, alcohol, and drugs as a type of self-medication. While some people with ADHD will act fast without thinking, others are dreamy, have a sluggish mind, and might find it challenging to harness their attention and to initiate and perform tasks. For those people, ADHD manifests as an underactive mind and an underactive behavior, non-reactive, very slow. In some cases, that could lead to depression and anxiety. So we talked about self-regulation in relation to cognition and in relation to behavior, and people with ADHD have problem regulating their emotions too. They have difficulty dealing with their feeling internally, but also they have difficulty expressing their emotion in a way that will support their intention. Many people with ADHD are easygoing, excitable, the center of the party. They might be so hyped that they push it too much. And then they get frustrated if they don't get what they want. They have hard time regulating positive emotions. Others might struggle with regulating negative emotion. They might have tantrums or anger outbursts over mild irritant. And once they are in a tantrum, they can't settle down and they stay upset for a long time. Those people might struggle with low self-confidence and they tend to be not very social and they tend to develop mood disorders. On the other hand, some people with the ADHD have low-key emotions and they tend to never get very angry or very frustrated. Their emotional response are similar to the underactive reaction and behavior described before. So who can diagnose ADHD? In order to diagnose ADHD, you need to be either a psychiatrist, psychologist, pediatrician or family doctor, a nurse practitioner, a neurologist, a master level counselor, or a social worker. So when you're seeking an ADHD diagnostic, you want to ensure that you choose a practitioner that is experienced, that have a lot of diagnosis of ADHD under their belt. Generally, mental health practitioner will have more experience diagnosing ADHD than your nurse practitioner. In addition, the diagnosis need to rule out the prevalence of other mental conditions that might have similar manifestations. So, what might cause ADHD? So, research on ADHD shows that it has a strong genetic component. It's demonstrated that there is an increased chances of kids that have a parent or a sibling that have ADHD to have ADHD too. But ADHD is also associated with other non-genetic conditions such as low birth rate, preterm births, exposure to alcohol in utero, extreme physical and emotional neglect in early life, extreme parental stress, maternal or parental exposures to chemical before conceiving, childhood exposure to environmental chemical, and nutritional insufficiency or dietary insufficiency. Recent studies in epigenetics suggest that while genetics play a role in increasing the risk of a child to develop ADHD, non-genetic and non-biological factors play an important role in determining which genes will express themselves and which genes will be inhibited. Now, one question that really troubled me is ADHD becoming an epidemic? The diagnosis of ADHD has tripled in the last couple of decades. That might be because of improved screening tool, or because we are becoming a culture that is more and more multitasking, and we expose ourselves more and more to electronic, which decrease our attention span. With children, one has really to wonder if our expectation of children as young as 6 years old to sit sometimes for even 8 hours behind a desk is developmentally appropriate. I wonder how many of the children who are now diagnosed with ADHD are trying to adapt to a fast-paced culture that overwhelmed them with sensory input and unrealistic expectations. While ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder that implies an early origin that might go back to gestation or birth, some adults are now diagnosed with ADHD for the first time. So I had a couple of clients that were diagnosed with ADHD in their 40s and 50s. Late diagnosis of ADHD may be a result of improvement of screening tool, like I said, or because of a lifestyle that leads to reduction of attention span. We are all spreading our attention all over the place, so it's not surprised that some of us start to develop problem with paying attention. But ADHD manifests a little differently in children than in adulthood, mainly because of the different tasks and lifestyle that children are engaged with, as opposed to adults, and the tendency of children to need more movement and to take more risk than adults. That is for today. Like I said, this is the first video in a series of 4 videos. So I hope to see you in the second video, if it's interesting for you. I hope it's helpful. I hope you find it beneficial. I would love it if you leave me a comment in the comments and let me know if you have a question or what you're thinking. Thank you and have a good day. Bye.